Hey everybody, this is Steve Ward, and what I want to show you today is creating a Power Apps Canvas app to do OCR text recognition to convert handwritten text into digital text. So the front end of this is going to be a Power Apps Canvas app that can be deployed to your phone. You can then take pictures on your phone, and whatever it finds, it's going to convert any kind of text, whether it's printed text or handwritten text, and convert that into digital text for you. Now, the way this is going to work is behind the scenes, it's going to be calling the Azure Cognitive Services API, the Computer Vision API. And so the setup is going to be that we'll have the Power Apps Canvas app, which is then going to call Power Automate Flow, which is going to be the backend that's actually going to talk to the Azure Computer Vision API. Now, the thing that I think is so amazing about this is that as a former developer, I didn't write a single line of code to do this. Inside of Azure, I did a few clicks to create the computer vision endpoint. With the Power Automate Flow, I was just dragging and dropping a few different connectors to actually build up this flow to talk to Azure. And then inside of Power Apps, I just pulled up the editor and dragged a few controls onto the pane, including one that I was then able to call the Power Automate Flow with to tie it all together. It took me maybe an hour or two to put this all together. Now, on top of that, I also have a sample that's available on GitHub. So if anybody wants to download this, feel free to do that and you can use that in your own environment. Everything that I'm showing here not only works in our commercial Azure cloud, but also our Azure for Government cloud for US customers in conjunction with Office 365 GCC High, which is our Office 365 environment that is FedRAMP High compliant. So I'm really excited about this demo. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the comments below. And I'd love to kind of see what kind of apps you could possibly build with this kind of setup. Okay, so here's the setup. We're looking at the Power App that I put together. And what we have is we have a camera control, which you can see me in right now. And then what I've enabled is that you can actually take a picture from the camera control. So I'm going to put a handwritten message here in front of the camera real quick. We'll let that focus. I'm going to click on the image. So actually, let's preview this. I'm going to click on the image. That'll save the picture that we just recorded from the camera. I'm going to click Process. And now what this is going to do is actually calling a Power Automate Flow on the back end, which is going to call the Computer Vision API to do the OCR recognition. So now we can see the results of that image getting processed with OCR. It says, "Hello world, my name is Steve Ward and I work for Microsoft. I love the Power Platform." So I think it did a really good job there, and it's really cool to see just how powerful this is. So once again, I didn't do any coding, I didn't do any scripting. I just created the Azure service. I then created my Power Apps Canvas app, which then called a Power Automate Flow that I also created. Everything was done with low code here. So I want to walk through the Power Automate Flow that I set this up to get this all working to talk to the Computer Vision API. So a couple of things here. If you download the sample, you want to do a couple of things first off. I've got an action here that just sets up what's the API key that you're going to use for the Computer Vision API. You get that for your own environment when you create that. I also have another one here for actually setting up the Computer Vision URL. So once again, that will be specific to your endpoint you create. I have a couple other steps here. One in particular is actually getting the base64 value of the image from the Power Apps Canvas app to Power Automate. And now what you'll notice is when you get that data, it's actually going to come in starting with this format, data::image/PNG base64. I want to remove that. I just want everything after that, which is actually the base64 value of the image. So that's what these next few steps are that do that and kind of just remove the first little bit of the input from Power Apps. The real logic here is actually calling the Computer Vision API. And so you can see that we're calling the endpoint that we defined previously with a variable. And then we're also specifying what the API key is in the HTTP header. Lastly, we're including the base64 representation of the image here in the body of the request. Now, the way that this API works is that you call it with the image first, and then you periodically have to poll it to see when it's done and when it has its results available. So on that response is actually something called the operation location. This is the URL that you can go back to and call that endpoint to tell if it's succeeded, and if it has, then you can actually get the results back. If it's not, you're going to want to have to call that again. So this do until loop is actually going to process that request. So we've got the operation location, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to wait 1 second before we call that to see if it succeeded or not. And then if it has, we'll go ahead and parse that and then store the status. And so if the status is set to succeeded, we will actually exit out of this do until loop. If after that first attempt, the process was not completed, we'll just go back to the top of the loop. We'll run the request again. But this is kind of a cool way that you can kind of set this up. And then the last thing we do is once we get the results, what you'll see is that the incoming results are JSON. And inside of there is going to be an array of results. And part of that is going to be text values of what it's determining in the photo. So this next little logic here is really just going to loop over the results from the API and then loop over all of the lines that it's found of text. And then from there, we're going to build up this array that we can then build up an entire string of all the text that we got from the photo. So we go down here, I've got a join operation where I'm taking that array that I built line by line. I'm then joining it with a space so that everything will show up as if it were just one long paragraph. Lastly, we're going to respond to the Power App with the result that we got from the join operation. So I hope you found this video helpful, and I hope it gave you another idea of how you could leverage the Power Platform to use low code to build out a mobile application for your organization. I'd also love to hear any feedback you have on this specific demo. Are there things that you think you could use for your organization? Do you have any ideas of an app that you would want to build? If so, please put those in the comments below.